Hello and welcome to Felicity's Funny Farm. Thank you for joining me today on Monday, and I'm hoping that you had a great weekend. I'm sorry I wasn't able to post this weekend. I just wasn't feeling very good. Today joining us is Davidson Patrick, and his story is relevant to the topic today, which is my friend the butcher. Dun dun dun! And we'll go through that now. My voice is still not completely recuperated from being sick this weekend. I'm feeling better. I'm just that kind of lung pressure has been consistent, and so occasionally I might have to take a drink of water or might need to take an extra breath just because I hope I'm not developing walking pneumonia because I'm just not able to catch my breath the way I was last week. But I hope that you bear with me because today's topic is an interesting one. So today I wanted to talk to you about where I get some of my animals from, not all of my animals, but I do have a friend who is a butcher. His family is butchers, and I've known him for a really, really long time, since 3rd grade. I've gone to religious ed with him. He still helps teach religious ed where I teach religious ed. He's just been a huge instrument in my life. And so one of my first memories of him was when we were in 4th grade. My cousin and I, who I spoke of in the last video, she's 6 months older than me. Me and her got into trouble in 4th grade and ended up going into the principal's office because of this friend, because we were pinching his cheeks. And so, he hates that story, and that's usually why I tell it. But this Felix has been one of my dearest friends for a very long time. The reason that I have Davidson in shot with us today is because he went missing a few years back, and when they took him to the shelter, they renamed him Felix, and so that's my friend's name. And when we first got him from the shelter, we were always worried that he wasn't going to start answering to Davidson again, and he was going to just need to be called Felix. And so people asked, well, is he named Felix after Felix? And no, he wasn't named Felix at all by us. When they took him to the shelter, that's what they named him, was Felix. And so, he knows he's being talked about, this silly boy. And so, but when growing up with Felix, his family, my grandfather has always had animals. He's had cattle, he's had rabbits, he's had chickens. Ever since I was little, I grew up around animals. My dad had chickens, he had pigs, and so growing up I was always around different animals, different farm life animals. And my grandfather, when he used to take the cattle to Felix's family because they have a butchering company, he used to always say that they traded meat for the cow. And as a child, I just thought it was such a brilliant idea that you would take your cattle and that cow would go live on a happy farm and you'd get someone else's meat, and you would be trading. So it just made a lot of sense. And as an adult, yes, I understand what the story is like. I hope for the kids that watch my channel, I hope you don't know what it's like. But this is part of growing up on a farm. And so I didn't find out until my senior year. I was in my first period class, and we were with our other friend Jeff, and the 3 of us were sitting next to each other, and I was just kind of sitting there quietly, and then I said, "Hey Felix, whose meat do we get when we take our cattle into you guys?" And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Whose meat is it? We take you a cow, you guys give us meat." And he's like, it's your guys' meat. And I was like, "No, I know it's our meat when you give it to us, but whose meat is it before that?" And our friend Jeff at this point has caught on, and he just thinks it's hilarious that I don't understand. And Felix is trying to be as compassionate as possible and telling me. So he says, "Felicity," he said, "well, what is it that your grandfather told you? Whose meat was it?" And I said, "Well, he said that when we take you a cow, that you give us someone else's meat, that we trade our cows for meat." And he's just stayed real quiet, which is funny because if anyone of you know Felix, that sometimes he's not the most quiet of people. But he said, "Felicity, it's your meat. It was your grandfather's meat." And I just remember being like, what? It was that moment where the world ends and your whole life changes, because up to that moment we had always been eating that meat. We had always had it for dinner or prepared our meals for it, and it just completely changed the way I thought about our animals. Growing up, my first friends were the cows. I had a best friend named Strawberry. She was one of the sweetest cattle that we owned. I had her really well trained that when I walked in to help feed them, that was one of our chores after school, I would call to her and she'd come to me. She was just the sweetest thing that I'd ever had to play with, and I remember saddling her and I'd ride her like a horse. Like Strawberry really was a great friend of mine. And all the other cows, there was Big Mama, who was a bit of a crazy. She used to chase us around the pen. And I had, you know, Strawberry's friends were also Nicole and Alan and Stephanie and Amanda and Alexandria. They're all named after our middle names. So growing up, we definitely had a relationship with them. Now, of course, right after I found out, right after Felix had told me, I left school. It was my first period, so I didn't even go to school the rest of the day. I left home and I came to my grandparents' house and I said, Grandpa, how could you have lied to us? You know, why would you have told us that? And he said, well, you guys were really little when I told you that. And I said, I know, but, you know, I always believed it. And so my grandpa, I don't think he meant any harm. I think he just thought that when we got older, we'd be able to cope and adapt to having, you know, our animals be taken to be butchered. Now, I think there was a lot of respect I had after that for our animals, you know, for the food that I ate. I sure didn't waste any food. I think there was a lot of respect for knowing where it came from, how much work it took, knowing what pastures we raised our animals on. So I believe that there was a great benefit to it. And my husband, who didn't grow up amongst animals or livestock like that, you know, he doesn't understand why we have so many animals that we're not allowed to eat. But once we name an animal, I really cannot consider butchering it. And so my oldest goddaughter, who's 9 years old, when she was around when we still had the cattle, and she said, why is it that we don't name our cows? And it was just a rule. I said, no, we don't name our cows, because at that point it becomes a pet, becomes part of the family. You know, it'd be like eating Davidson. And so nobody wants to do that. And so the reality is that we just stopped naming our animals after that. So it is odd that Felix has saved so many animals for me. You know, that's where I got 3 of my chickens. He brought me Salt, Buttercream, and Pepper. We did lose Pepper to a skunk, but we still have Salt and Buttercream. My mom calls her Butterball because she is quite a big chicken. She's actually one of the bigger chickens we have besides Sweetie. And so, you know, when he brought those 3 chickens to us, he said, I know you guys will take care of them. So he brought us those 3 chickens. He brought us Missy and Ollie, who are my pigs. He's just always kind of, when he knows that there's an animal that needs to be taken care of, he'll call and say, you know, Fee, do you want this animal? And I'll be like, yes, yes, yes. Now telling my husband and my mom, like, you know, I want this animal isn't as easy as my grandfather, because my grandfather helps me so much with the animals. And so, you know, it's always a little bit harder to convince them than it is to convince, you know, myself that I want another animal. But if you read my blog, you read day 6 about how I talk about, you know, being a responsible pet owner, and I'm trying really hard to do that in this upcoming year. I want to try and get our property together so that way I can have some more animals. If you read tomorrow's blog, I'm going to name all of the animals and just let you know who all the animals are on the farm. I was trying to get a video up where you could see the farm, and I'm hoping to have that up this week. It's just been a little bit of a struggle with being sick, with having, you know, my lungs messed up. Right now I'm not coughing, but the moment I go out and the cold air hits me, it's like I'm just ready to cough up a lung. And so, you know, it's an expression, but seriously. And so other than that, you know, I've really been trying to keep you guys updated as much as to what's going on in the farm, on the blog, and everything else. But this is where I get my animals from. Felix has also helped me with the pens. He helped me build my pig's pen along with two other friends, with Angeles and Roberto, and they helped us build the pen together, as well as Nicolas. And so I have some really great people in my life who have come together. My grandfather is very attached to Felix. You know, he always, my grandmother was the same way, God rest her soul. And so our family's just kind of always grown up with Felix in our lives. You know, it would be odd not to have him here. And so although he is a butcher, he is definitely my friend. Again, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, but I do most definitely see the importance of life for these animals. Occasionally I do get the question asked, you know, will you ever butcher any of your animals? I don't know. Maybe part of me wants to say that there's great value in teaching, you know, young ones where their food comes from, and kind of having that process, so that way they respect the food. But another part of me is just, you know, I don't know. I'd rather be eating someone else's pet than my own. I hope that doesn't make me a bad person. It sounds really bad, but you know, that's the reality of where I'm at right now. And so other than that, I Felix has been a huge instrument in also helping me throughout different hard times throughout my life. And so I just wanted to give him a shout out in today's video, because without him, I don't really know how much of a funny farm I would have. And so, he is definitely, my mom tends to mom him a lot. I think he gets annoyed by it, because she's always like, Felix, what are you doing now? What are you doing with this? And my sister always treats him like a little brother, and so she's always fighting with him. And my other friend Jeff, they're the same way with him. And so, this is who my family is. This is a part of my funny farm, and I can't imagine not having them in it. I hoped also to get a video up about showing you, different what we have to do to take care of the animals. It is a lot of work sometimes, but I want to show you guys kind of that process to help you consider, whether or not you perhaps should be getting animals, or maybe you need to wait on that. But other than everything else that we've discussed today, I hope that you're having a great week, and I hope that you're following me on my blog. I have been posting pretty much every day, and so don't forget to look for the link below and check on my blog and see what I'm posting. And I hope you have a Felicity Farm kind of day.